All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com for my 50th interview on this channel. I am delighted to welcome from the alarm, Mr. Mike Peters. Mike, how are you?
Good to be here, Joel. Happy 50th anniversary.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. I can't be more excited to have you on to mark the occasion, man.
Yeah, good
Um,
to be here.
I know there's quite a bit going on at the moment with the alarm, and we'll get to as much of that as we possibly can. But first and foremost, because I know, and very much to your credit, you've been incredibly forthcoming in recent years regarding the state of your health and some of the struggles you've had. So to start with the most important question I can possibly think of, simply, how are you? How are you doing with things?
Oh, no, thank you, Joel. But yeah, I'm very good and I'm in good, robust health. I'm really looking forward to the tour. I've got a great blood count right now. The new developments in chemotherapy treatments, oral chemotherapy treatments that I take on a daily basis have changed my life really. So I can, tour properly, can bring the drugs with me to America. I don't have to come home too often to
Mm.
be into the system. Yeah, there is a break in the tour so I can get back for my immunoglobulin therapy. But the doctors are dedicated to keep me alive as a human being, as a musician, a father, dog walker, everything possible. So I say yes to everything and worry about the consequences later. But thanks for asking.
Fantastic, fantastic, Mike. And I can't wait to see you on the road. You're coming out here to the States for a tour that I believe starts May 1st.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
it's a really cool package. It's yourselves, Gene Loves Jezebel with Jay Aston, and Belouis Some. So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's interesting, yeah, because we're kind of like we all know each other, and we kind of got the suggested about doing a tour together, and I thought, well, what unites us all? What's the common bond? And I realized that we all broke through MTV in that first era. We're all 1980s bands. We all started in 81, the same year as MTV, and we grew with it. We were all quite visual bands. We had the big hair and the cowboy boots and the paint sprayed poppies, and the Jezebels had makeup and glam, and they were extension of, an era I grew up on, the glam rock kind of gothic era of music. And then Bluey Some, made the big video of Storm Thorgerson and caused controversy with the big nude video. And, I think, a lot of it when we go on tour, we focused on what radio did for the band and what the press did for the bands, but we've forgotten how powerful MTV was and how much it did to connect the alarm to an audience right across America, especially in the early 80s. And when I think of our first ever television appearance anywhere in the world, it was on MTV with the
Mm.
cutting edge, with Peter Zaremba from the Flesh Tones introducing us, and then we did our most historic concert ever with the UCLA Spirit of '86 concert, which is the first ever live satellite broadcast around the world. And that was on MTV. And it was, so I think it was interesting to explore the connection of what MTV has, because I think even the audience almost forgotten how powerful MTV was in their lives, because it's no longer there. It's there in name, but there's no music on the channel. And I think we miss having a music channel. I know we've got YouTube now and all that kind of thing, but we're not as focused on just music as we used to be, like when we had MTV.
Absolutely. And to coincide with the theme of this tour, you have an album coming out called Music Television. And this is a collection of covers, largely of music from that era. I know you have a single out now from the record, The Man Who Sold the World, which is a Bowie cover, which is a bit before MTV. But just to share with the viewer some of the song titles and some of the things you've covered here. I Melt With You from Modern English, classic MTV track.
Yeah.
In the Air Tonight, Phil Collins. Don't Change in Excess, one of the greatest songs ever.
Yeah.
Beat It by Michael Jackson.
Ultimate
Um,
MTV anthem, I think.
you
Yeah, it
even
was.
the MTV theme.
Yeah, all of it is connected to MTV, and even The Man Who Sold the World, because we were recording that because Nirvana did it, and
Yes.
and, and that was MTV Unplugged, and that was a massive moment for me, because through my situation in 1989, the Alarm were one of the first ever bands to be invited onto MTV Unplugged, but I had to go back to the UK for a family emergency, but thinking that we'd reschedule it, but the band went ahead and did it without me. Dave Sharp was singing, and so I got denied that opportunity to go on MTV. And when I saw Nirvana appear on Unplugged, playing an Alarm style guitar, I'll have you know that I thought Kurt Cobain must have seen the Alarm, because he's playing an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar pickup in, which is our trademark sound.
Mm,
And I was like, so doing The Man Who Sold the World was a way of reclaiming a little bit of a life that had been denied to me, and killing two birds with one song, if you like, Bowie and Nirvana all in the same breath. But other ones like "Don't Change," that, like I say, you said that's one of your greatest songs ever. Well, that's the very first song I ever saw on MTV.
mm,
In the early 80s, we came to America. On the occasion we were lucky enough to stay in a hotel that had cable, and they had MTV. Well, we would stay up all night waiting to see the songs. And the first night I ever switched it on, the band from In Excess, they jumped out of their truck in the big hangar, and Michael Hutchins dancing around, didn't know who they were. I just thought, what a song! How come I've never heard of this before? And I thought they're either British or American, but then I figured out they were Australian. I thought, wow, this is a big platform here we're watching. It's bringing bands from all over the world and exposing us without just hearing the song. We can see who's singing this music now for the first time ever, when it's not that well known.
mm,
And you'd sit there all night hoping it would come round again, because in 1983 and 1984 there wasn't that many videos on MTV. So you had if you stayed up all night, it was a good chance you're going to see your favorite song come hell or high water within the next few hours. So that all the songs were chosen from that. Some of the songs like "Beat It" were, I just thought, what? I sat down in the studio and thought, right, 10 songs from MTV, right, go. And Gene Loves Jezebel, no problem. We're playing with them. Bluey Sun, no problem. I Melt With You. We played with Modern English 3 or 4 times across the year, and I always loved I Melt With You. So I'm going to do that. And then Michael Jackson, because he's whenever I think of MTV, Michael Jackson's probably the first thing that springs to mind. And he's in the ether. You don't know he's there. You don't know the song exists. You just hear it coming on, it's gone. And you hear it once a day somehow, on radio or in a lift or wherever you are in the world. But when you focus it on a song, I thought, hang on a minute, this is better than this is why it's everywhere, because it's an incredible song. It's very simple. And the lyric is, when I got to the lyric of "No one wants to be defeated," I'd heard the song a billion times, but I never heard that line until I
mm,
focused on it. I thought, that's an Alarm lyric. I could be proud of that. I thought, I want to own that lyric. And I think I want to own that song. And I thought, this will surprise our fans by doing this. They're going to ask questions, which is great. After all this time, instead of just rolling along like that, we're going to put a spike in the road and go, "What? The Alarm are doing Michael Jackson? What's going on?" And I think that's good. It's to have an inquiry going on at this time and stage of our career is a good thing, because and even doing some of the songs like "In the Air Tonight," that happened because I was walking through Central Park with our Love Hope Strength supporting team, and we'd just done a big show in New York, and we had a load of fans walking through the park, and I was busking some songs, and we came across this guy, and he said, "Can I join in?" I went, "Yeah, go on then. What have you got?" And he played "In the Air Tonight." I was thinking, what? You can't play that. And he played it beautifully, and he played the chords like I'd never heard them played before, because it was stripped away from all the production of Phil Collins and the MTV thing. And it was surprisingly how hard hitting as a song. I didn't realize how deep it was.
mm,
And it was almost like a blues. And it was like, wow, this is incredible. I said, well, he looked a pretty incongruous guy to be singing that kind of song. I said, well, where'd you hear this? He goes, "MTV, man." And I thought, "Whoa, okay." Yeah, no. So even then I started thinking, wow, MTV's got a lot to answer for, and it's not here to answer for itself anymore. So, but it's connected and bound so many of us together, because I look at it in terms of, we go on tour and you're thinking you're trying to connect with those fans who first saw you play back in the day and make them feel part of the future and everything like that. But I thought, what were we all doing in 1980? We weren't all just watching the Alarm. We were watching MTV together. I'd be watching it in the tour bus. somebody be watching it in their home, and then we'd meet at this gig, and we'd seen MTV, and we'd seen the new record on MTV, and that was the platform that was bringing us all together. So I thought, we could have a celebration of that generation MTV, and it might add some bit to the shows that we haven't had at previous events. So let's dive in and go for it.
Excellent, excellent. I would say too, I came into music towards like the mid to late 80s. I was born in 77,
Right.
so like 86, 87 was kind of my entry point. I would have to say, at least from my experience, MTV was massive. I mean, it was on in my household day round, you know.
Yeah.
But college radio for me too was a big thing. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was in my kitchen when I was 10 years old, fiddling with the radio. My hand went left on the dial. And
Mm.
once the static sort of cleared, the very first song I ever heard on college radio was Rain in the Summertime,
Wow.
Farm.
87.
You know, so there was this interesting sort of combination of MTV and more independent-minded radio sort of pushing things forward as well. So I'd
Well,
imagine college radio
when
was a
we
great
first
help.
came when we first came to America, that there wasn't a lot of alternative radio around, and there was certain stations at BCN in Boston, or KROQ in LA, or LIR in Long Island, and KZoo in Texas. There was and Live 105 in San Francisco. They were the sort of bedrock of alternative airplay, if you like, and but they were still frowned upon, and it was still seen as a new format, and it was still the big boys on radio everywhere you went. It was Led Zeppelin and the Who, and it was tough for bands like the Alarm or the Replacements to get any traction going. But college radio was the place where we first could get some play, and then it was MTV before we got played on mainstream radio. It was college radio and MTV that picked up on. Our first singer was The Stand in the USA, and we toured with U2. We were completely unknown. Bono and the Edge would occasionally go on a radio station and ask the DJ not to play New Year's Day, but play The Stand by the Alarm, because we were opening for them that night, which is very generous of them to give up their airtime for the Alarm. And it was a lot of college radio kids, because we played a lot of colleges at the time. But then it was when MTV came along and picked up on the Alarm through the cutting edge, then that started to make mainstream radio think, we've got to take notice of this new wave thing, because even U2, before they broke, they had to go on tour with Jake Isles' band, to kind of get seen and heard by radio programmers who were obsessed with Styx and Foreigner and all this kind of stuff, break the mold. And the Alarm in '86, before you would have heard Rain in the Summertime on college radio, we toured with Pat Benatar
Mm.
to the Seven the Hard Way tour again, to help break alternative music into, not just for ourselves, but for everyone else who's coming behind us. REM, Wire Train, Long Riders, all those bands, Red Hot Chili Peppers, that were all coming up the up the river. It was all about, let's open the minds of these guys who just live for Led Zeppelin records and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a really interesting time, and especially in that early '80s period before MTV became gigantic, around that '87, '88 time. They were breaking unknown bands. It was the one place you could go and hear new music. That's how I heard In Excess for the first time. It wasn't on the radio. Don't Change wasn't on the radio. It was a hit via seeing it on MTV. I don't know if it ever was a hit record. It's one of their best songs, but it was later songs that broke through as a result of them building a fan base through early videos and getting play on college, and solidifying it with great concerts when they came to play live.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I can't help but notice the album awards behind you,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
which kind of leads me to a question I was thinking about, especially because I know um, you cover the Buggles song "Video Killed the Radio Star," and there's a slight lyrical change to your version. You changed it to "AI killed the rock and roll star." Um, which kind of brings me to this question because the alarm came up, as you've described, when the industry was still an industry, right? I mean, there was actually still a music business at that point. Obviously, things have changed considerably to where we are now in 2024. Um, and there's, I talk to a lot of musicians who have a bit of gloom and doom in their philosophy as far as how to navigate where things are now. But because the alarm is still so active in the here and now, I'm curious, although things have changed, a lot in the last 20 plus years, what are some of the advantages to where we are now that the alarm is able to experience with this sort of new frontier we're all hoping to explore now in the
Well,
industry?
I think when I started out in the 80s, music was just about good music. Good music got you to the space you wanted to occupy. And in the 90s, it shifted. It became music. Good music was defined through big music. When Oasis and Blur came along in Britain, it was like who sold the most records. It wasn't about who's got the best song anymore. It was like how many you got no gold discs on your wall? Nah, you're no good. And I think and at the time, music made a big shift to started it started publishing the the audience counts at concerts. It started publishing the fact of how many records you'd sold, not just where you were in the chart or how many dates you had on the tour. And I think that took some of the mystique out of it as a little bit as well, because it could expose you. Because when we first toured in America with you too, our first night was at the San Francisco Civic, 8,000 people, amazing. 2 nights later, we go to Salt Lake City, we paid to 400 people. Now,
Mhm.
you two put on an amazing show, and so did we. The next night after that, Red Rocks, Under a Blood Red Sky. The next 2 nights after that, cancelled, no ticket sales. Can you imagine that would be all over the newspapers now if that was you two today, wouldn't it? It'd
Mm.
be everywhere. And then we go, oh, they're on the way down. They've had to cancel 2 shows. They wouldn't focus on the show that had 8,000. They'd focus on the show that only had 400 people in it and say, they're on the way out. That's it. They're over. Gone. Bye bye. But in those days, you could mask those because it was part of a building process. People understand you were going to come the year after, and maybe there'd be 600 people or 6,000. But now it's about the immediate, the figures that you've bands now who don't sell more than 1,000 records of their first album, they're over. And it's it to but now I think we're getting back to that sort of time when we started as the Alarm, when it's about good music, not about loads of record sales. It's about owning that piece of vinyl, cherishing it, going and telling your friends, helping a band build and consolidate their position in life. Because they're not on the charts. Yeah, I don't care about the charts. I never have. It's a pollution in rock and roll, the chart. Basing your musical taste on what is in the charts is musical pollution. I mean, you
Mhm.
don't, we have to avoid that. It's like you have to love music because you instinctively fall in love with it because you've seen it on YouTube when nobody else has. Well, enjoy it. And I think that's it, because bands aren't supposed to be massive till their fourth or fifth album. That's the era I come from. But now, if you're not big on your first album, goodbye. And that's wrong. But we have the power as musicians to change that right now. And we can start to, through our websites, through our YouTube channels, through our Instagram and social media, we can, control the hype a little bit more and say, hey, we're just doing this here. And we love you to come along with us on this journey, but we're not trying to get into the Billboard Hot 100. That's belongs to Beyonce or, those guys over there. We're over here just making good music and come on in and join us and let's celebrate what music can bring to the table. Not what 1,000 million record sales can do to the planet and the destruction of the ozone layer. Let's just focus on the powerful side of music. And I think that young people, ironically, probably through the vinyl upswing, are discovering the joy of having a record by a band that their friends have never heard of and
Mhm.
walking through university going, hey, look, I look cool. Who's that? Who's that on that record jacket? Well, you might like him if I come around and play your record for you, play this record. And it's getting back to those simple basics. Because I still get loads of young bands coming to me. Hey man, what do we do with our record? Just let it take you where it's going to take you. Don't try and go and open for U2 tomorrow night because you've made a demo. Just just baby steps, let it grow. But that's the industry doesn't recognize that anymore. It only recognizes it'll only sign a band if they've got 8 million followers on Facebook or YouTube straight away. And it's like no one does that. Only pop acts do that. Immediate pop, disposable pop. That's what that does. But if you're going to build something long term, it has to grow organically, and it has to go from 100 to 200 people to 150 to 300 people, and it grows like that. And you play 100 gigs and you get 100,000 people, and that's how it should be. That's how it broke for U2 or Led Zeppelin or the Who. But we've forgotten that the history of rock and roll is built on those kind of bands
Hmm.
who started from nothing and took years to break. Years. When you think of U2 as an example from 1980, they didn't really break till 1984, 85. After Live Aid was when they became a band that could start to play in arenas and outside of theaters. And that doesn't happen very often today for young bands now. They're not given that time and space to develop. So the only way to do that is to create that environment for yourselves. And that's where selling records through your own website, selling them at your own gigs, creating your own autonomy so you can move on to a next album. That's always that's super important to have that ability and autonomy to be able to make your own music. And more people are learning to become independent, truly independent artists who can survive without record labels, managers, and they don't have to put their music on Spotify and stream it. I try to, music television is an album point. We're just selling it at the moment to our fans, and it's on vinyl, CD. You only get it at the gigs. It's not on Amazon. It's not going to be streamed because the people who buy our music, we want them to have the exclusivity over it because they're supporting us by paying down their hard-earned dollars to keep us on the road, keep us making music, and people are learning that we should have I always think we should have a day. We've got record store day. Let's have an artist record store day, where everyone goes on a band, say, hey, it's Monday. All the record shops around the world are closed. So let's go and buy an artist website and give them some revenue to keep them on the road and keep them playing shows. And that's the kind of support we need.
Excellent, excellent.
Anyway, rant over.
Oh, no, no, not at all. It's fantastic. I do have one last question for you, for the moment. The Alarm has an extensive history. It's been decades and decades now. You're about to go on tour. You're active in the here and now. When you look back at your career, what does the Alarm have yet to accomplish as a band in your mind?
Well, play at Madison Square Garden. That'd be quite good. That's one venue we never got to. We played Meadowlands and we played Jones Beach and we've done all that kind of stuff. But no, look, I don't have any regrets. I love the fact that we've had up and downs in our career. We've played to 26,000 people, and then we've gone back to playing to 2,000 people or 200 people in places. And I think that makes us a band. Our lineup isn't the same. We've had to deal with that and the changes that happens through life. Not everyone stays the same as when they start out. And you have to learn to live with that and adapt to it and survive and repaint yourselves in different eras. Say yes to the things that 10 years ago you used to say no to, because life moves on in circles and cycles and it's never the same twice. And you shouldn't, I've learned in life that probably back in the 80s, towards the end of the 80s, the Alarm was more defined by what we didn't do than what we did do. We were a big band and we only played these kind of venues and we only made this kind of music. And then I realized when the 90s were coming, we have to change everything. We have to go and play these kind of venues now. And we have to sort of turn our back on some of that stuff that's the mainstay of what we are. We have to reinvent ourselves here. And I think that's the one thing we've been able to do is constantly change and adapt and move with the times, mainly because we've always had our own autonomy since the early 90s. And we've been able to make records when we want, when there's songs to be ready to be performed and shared with an audience. And so I don't have any regrets on that front, because I think if we'd gone off and been a big band and just stayed on the top of the wave, it's kind of surfing's all about falling off and getting back up again and going for the next wave, isn't it? It's not just about staying on the eternal wave forever. it's about getting up there and finding that magic moment. And you want to have that magic moment more than once in your life, don't you? So you have to come back down to experience it again.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I'm thrilled that you're experiencing a great period in time for the band. I'll be at the Boston show, uh,
Fantastic.
and I look forward to seeing the band live. All the best to you with your health, with the
Thanks,
music,
Joel. Thank
and
you.
it's been lovely having you. Thank you so much for being my 50th guest.
Hey, very honored. Thank you, Joel. See you in Boston.
Take care, my friend.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.